Some people walk into a room and simply see a room. Others walk into that same room and immediately notice that one person is unusually quiet. Someone else is smiling, but the smile feels forced. Two friends are talking normally, yet something about the way they avoid looking at each other feels wrong. A coworker says, "Everything's fine," but their voice drops slightly on the word, "fine." And before anyone else has even realized that something changed, you already know. First, this sounds like a gift. You read people well. You catch details others miss. You sense tension before it becomes obvious. You recognize when words and emotions do not match. But there is a side to this that almost nobody talks about. Because when your mind notices everything, it rarely knows when to stop. You don't just observe people. You analyze them. You anticipate them. Sometimes you absorb them. And eventually, something that looks like extraordinary awareness from the outside can become exhausting from the inside. So why are some people constantly reading the room? Why can a tiny shift in someone's expression stay in their mind for hours? And most importantly, how do you keep your awareness without allowing it to consume your peace? Because the real problem may not be that you notice too much. The problem may be what you believe you have to do with everything you notice. Main part, there are people whose attention seems permanently tuned to the hidden layer of every interaction. Not just what was said, but how it was said. What happened immediately before it. What happened immediately after it. The hesitation. The forced laugh. The change in posture. The answer that came slightly too quickly. The answer that came slightly too slowly. Most people let these details disappear. You don't. Your mind stores them. Then it compares them. Then it starts asking questions. Why did their tone change? Why did they look away? Did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Are they hiding something? Was that joke actually a joke? And suddenly, a 2-second interaction becomes a 20-minute investigation inside your head. But not everyone develops this pattern for the same reason. For some people, heightened sensitivity seems to be part of their natural temperament. Their attention automatically goes toward inconsistencies. They quickly detect when the visible story and the emotional atmosphere do not match. Someone says, "I'm so happy you're here," and maybe everyone else hears exactly that. You hear the sentence, but you also notice the stiffness behind the smile, the breath, the eyes, the slight distance in their body language. The words say one thing, something else seems to say another, and your brain immediately wants to solve the contradiction. What did they really mean? Are they uncomfortable? Are they pretending? Is something wrong? That curiosity can be useful. But when every inconsistency becomes something you feel compelled to decode, your awareness stops feeling like information. It starts feeling like unfinished business. And for another group of people, the origin can be much more painful. Because sometimes, noticing everything was never a personality trait. It was a job they were given far too young. This often happens when a child grows up around adults whose emotions feel unpredictable, unstable, or overwhelming. Instead of simply being allowed to be a child, they begin studying the emotional climate of the home. Is mom upset today? Is dad angry? Is an argument about to happen? Should I say something? Should I stay quiet? Should I make everyone laugh? Should I comfort someone? Should I disappear? The child becomes extremely skilled at reading tiny changes because those changes matter. A door closing differently matters. A particular look matters. The sound of footsteps matters. A silence at the dinner table matters. And in some families, the child goes even further. They do not only monitor the emotions of adults. They begin managing them. They comfort the parent. They calm down the argument. They become the peacemaker, the listener, the responsible one, the emotionally mature one. Psychology often describes this kind of role reversal as parentification. The child learns something very powerful. Other people's emotions are my responsibility. And that lesson does not automatically disappear when childhood ends. The house changes. The people change. The child becomes an adult. But the radar stays on. Now they enter every friendship, relationship, workplace, and social gathering with the same invisible assignment. Check everyone. Notice everything. Prevent problems. Keep the emotional temperature under control. And that is where the exhaustion begins. Because there are several experiences that become incredibly common when you live this way. Sign 1. You often know the answer before someone says it. Imagine watching a movie where the subtitles appear several seconds before the actors speak. You would constantly know what was coming. At first, it might seem convenient. Then it would become irritating, because you would always be slightly ahead of the scene. Social interactions can feel exactly like that. You ask a coworker, "Want to get coffee this weekend?" There is a tiny pause. Their shoulders tense slightly. Their expression changes. Their eyes move away. And before they answer, you already feel like you know. They don't want to go. Now comes the strange part. They still have to answer. So you stand there while they search for a polite explanation. "Oh, I'd love to, but I think I have something going on with my family this weekend." And maybe their explanation is completely legitimate. Maybe your interpretation is wrong. That matters. But when your mind constantly scans for hidden meaning, you rarely experience only the spoken conversation. You experience two conversations at the same time. The first is the one happening out loud. The second is the one you believe is happening underneath it. And sometimes the second conversation becomes so loud that you barely hear the first. You start predicting rejection before it happens, conflict before it starts, disappointment before anyone admits it. That can make ordinary communication surprisingly tiring. Because instead of simply being present, part of you is always calculating what comes next. Sign 2. You absorb moods that were never yours. Have you ever entered a room feeling completely fine and walked out feeling tense without knowing exactly why? Nothing happened to you. Nobody criticized you. Nobody even spoke to you. But somehow your body feels heavier. Imagine stepping into an elevator with two coworkers. Nobody says anything. One is staring at their phone. The other is looking at the floor. It appears completely ordinary. But you notice the tight jaw, the unusual silence, the irritated breathing, the way neither person acknowledges the other. Maybe they argued earlier. Maybe they didn't. You do not actually know. But your nervous system has already registered tension. A minute later, the elevator opens. They leave. And somehow you carry part of the atmosphere with you. This is one of the most exhausting parts of extreme emotional awareness. You can become affected by feelings that were never directed toward you. Someone else is angry. You become tense. Someone else is uncomfortable. You become uncomfortable. Someone else is disappointed. You start wondering how to fix the atmosphere. It is like emotional secondhand smoke. You did not create it. You were not even involved. Yet somehow you inhaled it. And after enough interactions like this, you may finish the day completely drained while wondering, "Why am I exhausted? Nothing even happened." But something did happen. Your mind spent the entire day processing emotional information that most people simply allowed to pass. Sign 3. You often see trouble before everyone else. There is another strange consequence of paying close attention. Sometimes you notice patterns early. A new person enters the group. Everyone loves them. They are charismatic, funny, confident. But something feels inconsistent to you. Maybe you notice how differently they speak depending on who is in the room. Maybe certain stories never quite match. Maybe compliments always seem to contain a hidden insult. Maybe you see manipulation where everyone else sees charm. So you warn someone, "Just be careful." And what happens? Nothing. Because nobody else sees what you see. There is no dramatic proof. No obvious disaster. Only details. So instead of believing you, they may decide that you are suspicious, negative, jealous, overly sensitive. You begin doubting yourself. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I really am overthinking. And then, occasionally, months later, everything collapses exactly around the patterns you noticed at the beginning. This can create a dangerous habit. You start believing that because you sometimes detect problems early, every uncomfortable feeling must be correct. But awareness and certainty are not the same thing. This distinction is crucial. Your perception can alert you, cannot always prove the conclusion. A useful signal is not the same as an unquestionable verdict. You may notice something real, but you still need room for uncertainty. Otherwise, intuition quietly turns into constant suspicion. And then the radar that once protected you begins creating threats even where none exist. Sign 4. You become whoever the room needs you to be. When you become extremely skilled at reading other people, another ability often develops alongside it. Adaptation. You know what makes people comfortable. You know which version of yourself works best with different personalities. Around someone quiet, you become quieter. Around someone energetic, you become more animated. Around someone insecure, you soften yourself so they never feel challenged. Around someone easily offended, you carefully filter every sentence. With an unpredictable boss, even a simple message can become a miniature editing project. Write, delete, rewrite, change the punctuation, remove the joke, add an emoji, remove the emoji, read it again. Could this sound rude? Could this sound defensive? Could they misunderstand that sentence? Eventually, you become extraordinarily good at fitting the emotional shape of almost any room, like water poured into different containers. And people often love you for it. You are easy to talk to, easy to be around, understanding, considerate, flexible. But there is a question hiding underneath all of that adaptation. What shape are you when nobody else is around? Because if you spend enough time becoming exactly what everyone else needs, eventually it can become difficult to identify what you need. What do you actually enjoy? What do you actually dislike? What would you say if nobody were disappointed by it? What would your personality look like if you stopped constantly editing yourself for the comfort of the audience? This is where sensitivity can slowly turn into self-erasure. You are present in every relationship, but a smaller and smaller version of you is actually participating. Sign 5. You experience a social hangover. This one confuses people around you. You go out. You laugh. You have conversations. Nothing terrible happens. Maybe you even have a genuinely good time. Then you come home. You close the door. And suddenly, you are done. You do not want another conversation. You do not want another notification. You do not want another person asking how your day went. Sometimes you do not even want music playing. You just want silence. You sit in the dark for a while. Not because you are depressed. Not because something dramatic happened, but because your brain feels full. Think about what happened during those 4 hours. You were not only talking, you were observing. Who became quiet after that joke? Why did those two people suddenly stop talking? Was that laugh genuine? Why did she look uncomfortable? Did I interrupt him? Did I talk too much? Did I talk too little? Why did that person leave early? Was everyone actually having fun? Your conscious mind may not even ask all of these questions directly, but the data keeps arriving. Facial expressions, tone, posture, timing, social dynamics, small inconsistencies. By the time you get home, your mind feels like a computer with too many programs running at once. Nothing is necessarily broken. The system simply needs everything to stop. That is why solitude can feel less like loneliness and more like neurological silence. Finally, nobody needs to be interpreted. Nobody needs a response. Nobody needs anything from you. And for a moment, you can exist without monitoring the room. But there is a deeper cost underneath all 5 of these experiences. And this may be the most painful part. People who understand others extremely well are often assumed to need very little understanding themselves. You remember everyone's details. You know which friend needs encouragement. You know which coworker is hiding stress. You know when someone wants advice and when they simply want to be heard. You notice when the "I'm okay" is not really okay. You make space for everyone. And eventually, people begin experiencing you as a safe place. Which sounds beautiful, until you realize that being everyone's safe place does not guarantee that you have one of your own. People see you as strong, emotionally intelligent, independent. They assume that because you can understand your own emotions, you can handle them alone. And that creates a very specific kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of having nobody around you, something stranger. You can be surrounded by people whose emotions you understand deeply and still feel completely unseen. You know what hurts them. They do not know what hurts you. You know when they need space. They do not notice when you disappear. You remember the details of their lives. They miss the obvious things happening in yours. And eventually, one thought starts appearing. How can I understand everyone this clearly, while feeling like nobody actually understands me? That imbalance can hurt more than being alone. Because you are not lacking people. You are lacking reciprocity. And this is where many highly observant people make a mistake. They decide the solution is to become less sensitive. Stop caring. Stop noticing. Become colder. Detach from everyone. But that is not necessarily the answer. You do not need to destroy your awareness. You need to change your relationship with it. Because noticing something does not automatically make it your responsibility. That sentence matters. So let's talk about what actually helps. Skill 1. Separate observation from responsibility. Imagine a coworker walks into the office and immediately you notice they are upset. Your automatic response may be, should I ask what happened? Should I cheer them up? Should I say something funny? Did I do something? Do they need help? What if nobody checks on them? Stop at the first piece of information. They seem upset. That is an observation. Everything after that is an assignment you are giving yourself. And those are two completely different things. You can notice someone's sadness without fixing it. You can recognize tension without becoming the peacemaker. You can sense discomfort without changing your personality to make the room comfortable. Someone is allowed to have a bad day around you. Someone is allowed to be irritated. Someone is allowed to be quiet. Someone is even allowed to misunderstand you occasionally. You do not have to immediately enter every emotional disturbance and begin repairing it. Sometimes the healthiest response to an emotion is simply allowing it to belong to the person experiencing it. You can care without taking control. You can notice without intervening. Skill 2. Stop carrying consequences that belong to other people. This is much harder, especially if you were taught early in life that seeing a problem means preventing it. Suppose someone you care about enters a relationship that worries you. You notice behavior that feels dishonest. You see warning signs. You explain your concerns respectfully. They listen and choose to continue anyway. Your instinct may be to keep going. Find more evidence. Analyze every new interaction. Convince them. Protect them from the mistake. But there is a point where concern becomes control. You gave them information. They made a decision. Now the consequence belongs to their life. That does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop living their lesson for them. Some people will make choices you disagree with. Some people will ignore your advice. Some people will walk directly toward consequences you predicted. And unless there is a situation where immediate safety is at stake, you cannot make every decision for everyone you love. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is remain available without becoming responsible. Stand nearby. Keep the door open. But stop jumping into every storm before someone has even asked for shelter. Skill 3. Question your interpretation before you trust it. If you are good at noticing details, you may become very confident in the stories you build from them. That person looked away. Therefore, they are lying. That friend answered differently. Therefore, they are angry. My partner is quieter tonight. Therefore, something is wrong between us. Maybe, but maybe not. Observation is real. Interpretation is a hypothesis. This difference can protect your peace. You noticed that they looked away. That is information. They secretly hate me is a conclusion. You noticed your friend's tone changed. That is information. I must have done something wrong is a conclusion. The goal is not to distrust your perception. It is to stop treating every perception like a courtroom verdict. Sometimes people are tired, distracted, hungry, embarrassed, thinking about something completely unrelated to you. Your mind sees the puzzle piece and desperately wants to complete the entire picture. You do not always have to. You can leave some questions unanswered, and that may be one of the most freeing skills an observant person can develop. Skill 4. Let people experience the unedited version of you. If you constantly adjust yourself to other people, try something uncomfortable. Leave one harmless thing unedited. Say what restaurant you actually prefer. Admit that you do not enjoy something. Send the message without rewriting it 7 times. Do not automatically laugh at a joke you do not find funny. Say, "I'm tired tonight," instead of performing energy because everyone else is excited. These things sound small, but if you have spent years shaping yourself around other people, small acts of authenticity can feel enormous. You may even feel guilty, because somewhere inside, authenticity feels dangerous. What if they are disappointed? What if the mood changes? What if they like me less? But relationships in which you must constantly reshape yourself to maintain peace are already costing you something. They are costing you access to yourself. The goal is not to become insensitive. The goal is to stop treating another person's comfort as permanent proof that you are behaving correctly. Sometimes someone will be disappointed because you set a boundary. Sometimes someone will become annoyed because you say no. Sometimes the atmosphere will become awkward, and life will continue. Skill 5. Protect your recovery time. If social interaction leaves your mind overloaded, stop treating recovery like laziness. You may genuinely need quiet. You may need 30 minutes without conversation. You may need a walk alone. You may need to stop checking messages for a while. You may need an evening where nobody needs anything from you. That does not mean you dislike people. It means your mind processes a tremendous amount of social information. And if you never create space for that information to settle, you carry yesterday's emotional noise into tomorrow. But there is an important difference between recovery and avoidance. Recovery helps you return to life. Avoidance makes your world smaller and smaller. You do not need to disappear from every relationship. You need moments where your attention belongs to you again. That is the shift. Because something interesting happens when you stop treating your sensitivity like an emergency response system. You do not suddenly become less observant. You still see the details. You still recognize changes. You still understand what others may miss. But you stop automatically picking everything up and placing it inside yourself. Imagine walking through a crowded train station. Thousands of sounds surround you. Announcements, footsteps, conversations, phones ringing, doors opening. You hear them, but you do not chase every sound. You allow most of them to pass through your awareness and disappear. Emotional information can work the same way. You notice, you acknowledge, and then you decide, does this require me? That question can change everything. Not, is something wrong? But, is this actually mine to handle? Because those are not the same question. And eventually, the trait that exhausted you can become useful again. Your awareness can make you an extraordinary listener. You may understand what someone is struggling to say before they have found the right words. You may recognize needs that people are uncomfortable expressing. You may detect tension early enough to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. You may make people feel genuinely seen. But the difference is that now you are offering those abilities. You are not surrendering yourself to them. You choose when to listen deeply. You choose when to help. You choose when to step back. You choose when something deserves your attention. And you choose what you refuse to carry home. That is the boundary highly observant people often need most. Not a wall between themselves and the world. The filter. Because the goal was never to become blind to everything you notice. It was to stop allowing everything you notice to become part of you. Final. If you have lived for years feeling like your mind is permanently switched on, people may have told you the same thing over and over. Stop overthinking. Just ignore it. Don't take everything so seriously. But advice like that misses the point. You probably did not wake up one morning and decide to analyze every expression, every pause, and every shift in someone's mood. Somewhere along the way, your attention learned that these details mattered. Maybe because that is simply how deeply you process the world. Maybe because noticing people became part of how you kept relationships stable. Maybe because long ago, reading the room helped you feel safe. But what once helped you does not have to control you forever. You can notice someone's pain without adopting it. You can recognize a problem without becoming responsible for solving it. You can trust your instincts without assuming every interpretation is automatically correct. You can care deeply without constantly abandoning yourself. And maybe that is the real difference between sensitivity as a burden and sensitivity as a strength. The amount you notice does not have to change. What changes is the amount you carry. So the next time your mind detects that tiny change in someone's expression, that strange silence, that shift in the atmosphere, notice it. But before you follow it into another hour of analysis, ask yourself one question. Does this actually belong to me? Sometimes the answer will be yes. And when it is, your awareness may help you respond with incredible depth and compassion. But sometimes the answer will be no. And when it is, you are allowed to let it pass. If you recognized yourself in this video, tell me in the comments which of these 5 signs affects you the most. And if you know someone whose mind never seems to stop reading the room, share this video with them. They may need the reminder that understanding everyone around them does not mean they have to carry everyone around them. If you enjoy videos like this, support the channel with a like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.